All right, hello everyone, this is Dor. I want to share with you today a theory that I developed over the years, and I think it's time for me to share it. As most of my theories, this is not an intellectual theory. It's a non-linear theory which doesn't work only on the intellectual body, but consider the other bodies that we have. And if you want to find out more about that, you can check out my video below. So this theory is really for people to kind of change their mind about whatever they consider to be a disadvantage in their lives. So for me, for example, I used to not be satisfied in the place that I was. Let's say I was in university, in academy. I considered that to be a disadvantage. I didn't really want to be there. I didn't felt like I'm fulfilling something in my life. Or for example, someone that is in a relationship that for me a lot of times something didn't work in the relationship. More examples are I don't have enough money, or I'm not in the place that I want to be. I want to travel somewhere else, or I don't know what I'm doing. What's my purpose of what I'm doing here? And there's a lot of different situations and attributes that we have that we consider them to be disadvantage. So if you keep watching this theory, you might discover that there is something else possible about these disadvantages. So do you know this simple math thing where -5 double -5 equal 25? The minus turns into plus. The disadvantage turns into an advantage. So this is the theory that came up for me during these years, and it goes like this. Let's say you take a disadvantage, for example, your body. Let's say something in your body, in your attributes of your body doesn't work for you. For example, let's say you gain a little bit fat. Like I started to feel that recently. Like I'm getting more full, my stomach getting bigger. And let's say I consider that to be a disadvantage. Then what I do with this theory is I look for another disadvantage, a disadvantage that I consider to have in my life, and then I can put it together with that one. For example, another disadvantage that I had from the body realm is that I kind of always wanted to explore how it is to be bigger, like to have more muscles around me. So around my body. So if you take this disadvantage of I gained a little bit fat, and you put it together with the disadvantage that I'm a bit like like how do you call it, small or like skinny. So if you combine those two disadvantages, you can use that and build muscle. You can gain muscle and become bigger. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm not just giving you a theoretical example. So I take this disadvantage, like all my life I was in the same weight. I didn't have this disadvantage of suddenly become bigger, but now I guess I'm eating better. Now it's like I'm getting a little bit fat, so I'm taking another disadvantage of I want to get bigger, and I'm putting them together, and now it turns into an advantage. Something that I wanted to do for a while. So this is the theory in a very basic level. I'll give you another example for it. During the COVID, whatever it was, I got fired from my job. I used to do coaching, but at the same time I used to also work in high tech. So I got fired from my job, and I was, that's a disadvantage. Now I cannot work. So another disadvantage was that I didn't have time to do this project that I wanted to start a production company, like a video production company. So I took both of these disadvantages. I had no time, and I got fired from my job, and I created this production company that I always wanted to do. And I had some work with that for a while, and that kind of brought me to the next step of what I wanted to do. Another thing that happened during this crisis is that I suddenly, I didn't have a lot of money. I was thinking that I need a lot of money to go travel. But then I took the disadvantage of COVID. Everyone is like, so there was like a big disadvantage in everyone's mind, in the collective consciousness, that like COVID is a really bad thing. Like it's a big disadvantage. And I took that and the fact that I didn't have money, and I went traveling during COVID. And turns out that everything was like third or fourth time cheaper than the normal prices during like normal tourism time. So I got to travel, and it was really cheap to travel. During COVID, the disadvantage was like, people don't travel, don't go traveling. And I took this disadvantage with the disadvantage that I didn't have a lot of money to travel. It worked together, turns into this huge advantage that I could really travel for a long time with fourth of the money that I probably would need to have if I do that in normal times. Okay, so what I want you to take from this theory is I want you to start thinking in your life, what do you consider as a disadvantage? Maybe you think, oh, there's something that I'm not good at. I'm not good at surfing. I'm not good at climbing. I'm not good at being outdoors. I'm not good at talking in front of the camera. I'm not good at I don't know, like making money or working hard or something like that. And you take this disadvantage and you think, what other disadvantage in my life I can use to put both of them together and create an advantage? So we have all these stories about we're not good at certain things. So for example, maybe you're not good at being very social. You're not good at talking to people and be interesting when you're talking to people, be charismatic. So I can give you right now another disadvantage that you can take and turn this thing into an advantage. Just come out of the top of my head. Let's say you have another person that also have that. So you can take this thing, maybe you also want to, I don't know, like your circle is not big enough. You want to get the bigger circle of friends. So you can take this thing that you're not great at something, like I'm not great at talking to people and being charismatic, find another person that wants to explore that, want to improve that, and you, both of you together create an advantage. Like literally two people disadvantage create an advantage for you. So there's all these creative nonlinear ways of thinking. Now, if you go by like modern culture thinking, everything needs to be linear, everything makes sense. What happens is like, no, this is a disadvantage. I'm stuck in my job. I just don't like my job. Whatever you're gonna tell me right now is not gonna work. What is gonna help me if I find another person that don't like his job? If you're stuck in that kind of a linear mindset, this theory wouldn't work for you, because my theories are not linear. They're not like solely intellectual. But if you are willing to think in a nonlinear way, which means you don't go straight from point A to point B like this, there is maybe nonlinear direction that takes you there. So you can take those disadvantages and put them together. Just for the fun of it, I'm going to share some more of disadvantages that I found, and I can give you example to inspire you in this video. Okay, so I love this example, and it's really practical. You can use it. It's about job interviews. So turns out that a lot of people are not, like, they have this disadvantage that they're not great at job interviews. I didn't have this story because I realized very early, unconsciously, I realized this disadvantage theory. So here how it works. Let's say you have a disadvantage, you're not great at job interviews. What happens in a job interview? We come and they ask us all these questions and we start to qualify ourselves. We start to be like, yeah, I'm the best person for this. I'm very great in doing this. And you start to talk about yourself and to qualify yourself and to say all the things that you did. And the interview is kind of sitting, kind of bored. He saw probably 10 people just like you. And then whatever, he found someone else. Guess who this someone else is? It's maybe someone that realized a bit of this thing that I'm gonna tell you right now. So That's a disadvantage, right? You don't know, like when you talk about yourself in job interviews, it doesn't work. That's basically the disadvantage. So another disadvantage is people like to talk about themselves. So even the HR person that you're interviewing with, he likes to mostly talk about himself because he's a human being, and human beings are the most interested to talk about themselves, usually, in modern culture. So this is what you do. You take this disadvantage that you're not great at speaking about yourself, and you take this disadvantage that the person in front of you really likes to speak about themselves. You put them together in a job interview. So this is what you do. You start to ask the other person a lot of questions. Maybe ask you a question like, tell me how are you qualified for the job? And then you say, yeah, I worked in this company that was very similar to your company. Is your company doing that? Does your company have also these services? Oh, tell me more about these services. Wow, tell me, and how did you come here? How did you even got to this job? And you start to ask the interviewer a bunch of questions. And guess what? The interviewer loves to talk about themselves because they're a human being. And they start to share all these things. And now, instead of you qualifying yourself, the interviewer qualified himself, qualified the company, and psychologically, now it feels like you are someone that is invested in and someone that he wants to bring in his company because he already invested in you. He didn't just sit like this the whole time while you were speaking. So this is a great way of like coming off great in job interviews. So you can try this disadvantage. Like really, if you think just inside the box, you just think linearly, it's not going to work for you. But if you just get outside the box for a second and think how you can use your disadvantages as an advantage or put both of them together, that's how it works. Another example, you don't have a lot of money right now and you want, you don't have money for clothes, let's say. And another disadvantage is when you travel, you cannot take with you a lot of stuff. So what happens if you put these two disadvantages together and you get into this mindset of a traveler and you get into this mindset of, I don't need a lot of clothes. Like, I don't need all these clothes. I only need whatever I can travel with. Then like it happened to me. That's why I'm talking about it. It's like this whole thing about getting new clothes kind of like shrink itself. And I became like, oh, I don't need all these clothes. And I donated most of my clothes. And I just left like just a little bit of clothes that I can use for travel, and maybe when I go back somewhere, I have a little clothes. So you take this disadvantage in your life, you keep putting them together and you're stacking them together, and then you realize like, there's no disadvantage in my life. I have everything I need. Everything I need works perfectly for some other things that I want. And something that I want works great with some attributes that I have that I thought are disadvantage. For example, I thought that this is a disadvantage for me to like to speak, to like to share stuff. I thought it's a disadvantage for me. But then, another disadvantage is that I needed to do all these videos for my self-development channel, which was very scary in the beginning. And I thought I'm really bad at that. So I took those disadvantages. Great, I can talk in front of the camera and I can practice on that. I have a lot of time. So, that became an advantage for me. People watch these videos and people get value out of them, which is great. It gives me joy in my archetypal body. So, like everything you practice can be a disadvantage. Like first of all, you can find other people that need to practice that, and no one likes someone that is like a know-it-all. So it's great to have two people that don't know something and want to practice together. That's always a disadvantage. So whatever you're not good at, whatever skills you want to improve, whatever skill you think, oh, I want to play guitar, but I'm not good at playing a guitar, like that, practicing with someone else is always putting these two disadvantages together. And also anything that you want to learn, you can work on this skill of learning. So if something is hard for you to learn because you think that's a disadvantage for me, I'm not good at that, that would be a practice for you to practice this other skill that you're not good at, which is learning. So you, like, when you learn about this thing, even though it's hard, you practice at the same time learning, and that's become a disadvantage. And that becomes an advantage. So I give you 3 more examples that are really great. So the first one is when you're not in your center. So we have this thing about being in our center, finding our energetic center and be here in the center. And if you want to learn more about this, there is a video that I did about being centered, so you can check it out. I'm putting the links down below. So let's say you're not centered and you're going around and you're catching yourself, oh, I'm not centered again. That's a disadvantage. You have the time to work on your centering, just like the example before. So every time you're not centered from now on, that's a disadvantage, and you can use that disadvantage with another disadvantage that you're practicing being more centered, and you put them together and it becomes this great life practice that you have, and really advantage for life to practice your centering. Another great one is more about relationships. So this is a bit tricky, but because relationship a lot of times involved a lot of our irresponsible side, a lot of, for many people that I see, it's involved some low drama. And if you want to know more about that, you can check another video about that. But let's say you figure that stuff out. You watch these 2 videos and you figure that stuff out. So what you can do in a relationship, you can use a lot of disadvantages. Like, let's say one disadvantage is you don't have like the time to say what you really want to say to the other person. It's not a great time to say, and it's like there's something that you need to say and there's no place for it. Like, you cannot find this place. It just doesn't work. And then another disadvantage is, let's say suddenly this space becomes a space where there's a lot of big emotions coming up, or not even emotion, there's a lot of energy. Like, let's say it's an argument. And there's a lot of energy in this argument. Let's say your partner suddenly tells you something that is makes you very liquid. It makes you very like, oh wow, like that's a disadvantage. I mean, I love being liquid, so I don't know if that's a disadvantage, but just for this example, that could be a time where you say whatever that thing you couldn't say. So you can share whatever is disadvantage for you to say in disadvantage moments. Like, it can be in any relationship. You don't know what to say something, and you wait for the situation. You wait for that situation that is so crazy or overwhelming or full of emotion or very liquid to happen. And usually in those moments you think, oh, something is not right. You're trying to fix it. You're trying to make everything again like a box. But instead of that, you can use that time to share this thing that you didn't know how to share. You thought it's impossible to share this thing with my partner. That's a great time to share it, and it becomes an advantage because both of you are now liquid, and you can be liquid together and be in a new space, a new dimension together. Now the last example is, it's really dear to me because I think you can really shift your relationship about everything with this example. So it goes like this. So let's say you're trying to gain a lot of resources. You're trying to be rich, trying to keep accumulating stuff and money in your bank and getting all this stuff and work hard so you get a lot of resources and a lot of money, and you find out that it doesn't really work. Like, what I looked for lately, that a lot of people that like get a lot of money, a lot of times they lose a lot of money in different ways. Either they invest it and they lose it, or they just, something really bad happened to them. Like, let's take an extreme example. They become workaholic and they have all this heart condition, and then they have like heart attacks, and then they need to spend a lot of money on taking care of themselves then, or something like that. Or they just like destroy their life, they're like on their journey to accumulate a lot of wealth. Suddenly all the relationship are shitty, and that destroy their life. So there's all these ways that I see it doesn't work. Like, even for me in a small scale, I was never rich, but like let's say on a small scale, that I try to start gathering money, what I tend to either lose stuff, like I lose or getting stolen for a lot of equipment that I have, or something like that. So it never works for me to really accumulate wealth. So if you take that disadvantage and you take the disadvantage of life is really not about accumulating stuff. You cannot really accumulate anything. You die. When you die, you return everything back to the dirt. So everything that is really precious for us is our relationship or our experiences that we had together with other people. So, and in your adventures that are really what, those adventures that are really those experiences that you can accumulate and become significant in your life, in those adventures, a lot of times it really pays off to be without things. Like, when you have everything, a lot of times I found that I had some adventures that I had like this car, and I had all the equipment I need, and I didn't really need anything. I had enough money to stay in nice rooms. So I just didn't meet anyone. I really didn't meet anyone, and like those cool adventures didn't happen. But when I didn't have a lot of stuff, like in South America, I didn't have a lot of money. I was traveling and I was always around people. We always did stuff together. I always sleep in like these cheap hostels, and then I meet all these people. So it really pays off in your adventures to not have a lot. So if you take those two disadvantages, the disadvantage that you cannot really gather any wealth, and the disadvantage that if you're on your adventure, it pays off to not have a lot of stuff, because then you can ask for help, or you can get connection, and you can find nonlinear ways or possibilities to get stuff. You put those two together, what happens? An advantage. You don't need to accumulate wealth. You have this thing that leads you on your adventures, that whatever you have right now, it's enough, and you go and you meet people, and you have this like vacuum space in you where you actually need, like, you need a place to stay, or you need someone to help you, or you need someone to set you up with a job, and the universe provides. Like the dude in Big Lebowski said.
Yeah, well, the dude abides.
And it's something happens, and life takes you on this adventure and provides whatever you need for that. So that's the jewel in this theory. So if you're watching this video and you're enjoying, I wonder what things did you find so far that are disadvantages in your life, and you can put them together. Maybe you have some examples on your own. So please comment them here below, even send them to me personally. I would love to know what's your examples for this theory. What did you think or feel about this theory? If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell if you want to get notifications for new videos. I keep them coming for you. I hope this is valuable, and talk to you soon. Bye.